okay, and don't unmute in between
This
because
meeting is being recorded.
it becomes disturbing.
Mom, I have a question before we start.
From yesterday?
Yeah, you can.
Okay, let's do that first. Any doubts, comments on what we were doing yesterday?
I just want to know that where can we find the PPT because I didn't find it on the group.
Okay, so we'll share it today because we'll hopefully cover a major, like the most of it today. So I'll try getting it through today itself.
Okay, thank you.
Same doubt? Okay, I think it's cleared now. Anyone else? Okay, Nivesh, followed by Shita.
Mainly, I just wanted to ask that can we get the PPT from the previous classes? Just do them after when we get time to like research and all.
I missed that. I think your voice is a bit muffled, but from what I can tell, you're saying, can we get the access to the PPTs that was there in orientation as well,
The,
right?
in the previous classes. And when will we get those resources PPT?
It's the same PPT, okay? So the PPT that we're using for the training is like the same PPT. We'll share it shortly.
Okay.
Yug, okay, Ishita first, and then Yug, and then Sanvi.
Yeah, I wanted to request that can you add me in the group because I'm not added in the group.
Okay, guys, these technical questions, know about you not being on the group or PPTs being shared. I think it's better if you ping the Ogly number. This is not the right platform for us to be clearing those doubts. For now, the
Okay.
doubts that we'll be clearing will be particular to the things that we're covering, okay, about the format and whatever I'll be explaining. So everybody who had similar doubts about being on the group, not being on the group, finding teammate, not finding teammate can lower their hands. Okay, Yug's question was similar, I'm guessing. Sanvi?
Like ma'am, we have given.
Vihan, meanwhile, will take you afterwards, Sanvi. It's okay. Vihan?
Ma'am, I had a question about, so will we get some time to interact with our team partners to discuss the speech and all that?
Oh, yes, sure. Like, that's why we're telling you to coordinate with your team partners and look for them already on the WhatsApp group, right? So that's
Yes.
what that process is supposed to lead to. So once you
No,
found them,
ma'am.
you can have a
Ma'am,
separate
my
WhatsApp
question
group.
is that in the meetings that we have like at 5:30, 6:30, do we get some time in that to interact with our partners?
No, because you have ample time beside this particular hour where you can actually go ahead and talk to your partner, right? So once you form the WhatsApp group, you can meet on different meetings altogether, like have a G meet where you are discussing your case and everything. You don't have to particularly do it here.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. Also, so Afreen ma'am, I think is being kind enough answering your questions in the chat. So like if you have any further questions, you can just start keep putting them in the chat. Okay, and we'll come back to them after we've covered parts of like a substantial part of the training deck.
Debaters
Anything
also
else?
question with respect
Okay,
to
Afreen.
the or when you would know like whether you're con, whether you're pro, and who you're going against. That's going to be exactly on the day when the qualifier rounds are, and that's why we have been emphasizing since the day one that please prepare the speeches for both the sides. You're going to get which side you are at the last moment. So there are two qualifiers round. It's most likely that you're going to get pro in one round and con in the other round. So you really don't have to worry about all of that. Just start preparing, and that these things are just like things which would be given to you as and when the rounds are going to approach. Okay.
Okay. If there are no more hands raised, we're presuming there are no questions. Can we then move forward to the PPT and complete what we'd started yesterday? Okay, let's start. I think there are no more questions for now. Um, okay, so yesterday I think we left at the rebuttal speeches. No, I remember covering the final focus as well. Crossfire. Let's pick it up from Crossfire. So, okay, so it's not like we're discussing Crossfire for the very first time. I did make several references with short descriptions about what Crossfire looks like even yesterday. So to begin with, it's your questioning period. That's what the first bullet point says. It's also what I tried explaining yesterday, a little bit of it, right? Wherein the speakers that have already delivered their speeches and who have already interacted with the other teams insofar as they have given their own case and listened to the other team, now's the time for engagement. Okay, so the same speakers will now engage with each other, and this happens in the crossfire. Now, how does this happen? Much like how you ask POIs in between speeches in the parliamentary debates, the only difference here is that you don't ask questions in the middle of the speeches. You are given a separate time slot altogether, a separate segment wherein you can cover those things, right? So you can ask questions, and you will have responses from the other side to those questions in during this crossfire round. So there's a lot of exchange that happens in the question and answer format during the crossfire, and there's a set time limit for the crossfire. So it's not like the crossfire goes on for as long as the conflict does, because the conflict can be never ending and there might not be any resolution. Okay, but you'll be given a certain time frame, and you have to ensure that whatever point you were trying to make is conveyed, if not resolved entirely, or clearly taken in during the crossfire, because crossfire is also evaluated. That's another thing that somebody raised a question about yesterday. So crossfires are evaluated. You are marked according to how you perform in the crossfire. And you, just because crossfire isn't like, doesn't seem like a formal thing where you like the speeches that you deliver, it doesn't mean that it's your it's you have the free range to conduct yourself however you please, or that you can heckle or do any other, or like exhibit any other inappropriate behavior. Because like I said, the chair or the judges will be responsible for maintaining decorum. You're also being marked for manner. The marking criteria remains the same. Okay, method, matter, and manner, which means that you're also being marked for how you conduct yourself. So appropriate behavior is the key during crossfire. Also, not everybody, so in the crossfire it's about who knows the responses well. Okay, so it's not like the person who's responding to crossfire should be doing it individually out of their own sensibilities. The partners can also help, but like if I am supposed to be participating in a particular crossfire round, then perhaps you could be coordinating on some other platform like WhatsApp or something, that oh, say this in crossfire, say that. So if you have a constant means of being in touch, you can do that. You think you'll do better, I mean your partner will do better with your rebuttal, you can share them with your partners. It's not like an individual thing from that respect. So the person could be delivering the crossfire, the responses in the crossfire, or asking questions, but it could be a matter of collective thinking which is happening behind the scenes. All right, now these points here, I hope you guys have like had a look. So both debaters have equal access to the floor, but the first question must be asked to the debater who just finished speaking. So this is about, okay, so the crossfire begins, and the first crossfire begins
बांधेगी
after.
उसकी उसकी बहन क्या बांधेगी उसको एक वो वाले वो मेरा कान्हा वाली
Somebody is muted, unmuted, I'm sorry. Can you please mute yourself? Also guys, please be mindful of like your mic and the condition it is in. Okay, moving on. After the initial question, okay, so when you're starting the crossfire, you ask a question to the person who's most recently finished delivering their speech. Okay, so like when if the first crossfire happens after the first two constructive speeches, then the person who very recently finished their speech would be the opposition constructive speech, which means the proposition asks a question to the opposition speaker, and that's going to be the first question, and that's how it goes from then onwards. But that's the flow for the first time, like when you're commencing. Okay, just finish speaking while debating from the team. Okay, after the initial question and answer, either debate make question or answer. So this point, I mean, it means that after the initial questioning and answering has been done, like I told you, the flow in that flow, then you can go ahead and do however you think, like whoever can answer a question or answer. Like it's there's no such definite flow. So it becomes very free flowing afterwards once the beginning's been marked. A debater who attempts to dominate or be rude to his opponent will lose points. I've already told you, manners carry your manner carries marks. Good questions are brief and good answers must meet the question. Okay, another very important valid point. Just like when you're engaging in crossfires, and this I think is a problem with all of us, right? Like it's like a shared problem wherein we tend to ask very, very long POIs, like very, very long questions in general. So try to shorten your question. Sometimes we try to ask a leading question also, right? So I don't really want the answer to this question. I'm just trying to put this thing in a question so that the fault of the other side is made evident. But like even if you try to do that, just my advice would be, if you think you can't cut things short in an impromptu fashion, write questions down already. Okay, if you are delivering a speech, tell your other partner to send in a set of questions that they might have for the other side, because they were largely and relatively free when you were delivering your speech. So that's one way of doing it. But like please prepare your questions beforehand. The question shouldn't be like more than 15 10 15 seconds is the best time limit you can set for yourself. Long questions will not be entertained. Judges will most probably intervene, because sometimes questions can be as long as like 1 minute long or some such thing, which cannot be entertained for sure for a crossfire which is like only 3 minutes long. Cool. So Grand Crossfire is the crossfire. I mean, it's the same thing, but one that happens towards the end. Okay, so Grand Crossfire is where not two people from the, like it's not just one person from each team that gets to interact with the other person from the other team. It's all of the four people debaters coming together and asking and answering questions at the same time. Okay, that's why you see that all debaters interact with one another is the first point herein. The first question is asked to the team that just ended its summary by the other team. Okay, now this is a set rule. Okay, for any crossfire, whoever was speaking before the crossfire is the first person who responds to a question. Just concretize this in your mind so that you don't forget it. That's like the general principle for all types of crossfires. Okay, after the initial question and answer, any debater may question or answer, and all should participate, same drill as in the general crossfire. The same guidelines for rudeness and stalling apply, so everything remains by and large the same. Grand crossfire is only your last crossfire, after which you don't get any time for engagement. So anything that you might have potentially missed out on in the initial crossfires because the cases hadn't evolved much by then, you get to ask them now. My advice would be, in the crossfire, don't try to mull over the same points that the other side has adequately responded to. Just try to go ahead and find newer dimensions from which you can attack and better standpoints. Doesn't mean you introduce new arguments. It just means that you identify the things that they still have left unresolved in the case despite the responses in the initial crossfires, and you try to attack them now in order to reestablish your case. Any questions on cross? Okay, let me cover this slide as well on the do's and
Nitiksha,
don'ts.
ma'am, just a
Yeah.
second. So, for junior category, we do not have grand crossfire, so you don't need to worry about that at all. Okay, so the last speeches are going to be the final focus speeches. After that, you don't have anything of that sort. The reason why Nitiksha ma'am is explaining what grand crossfire is because you're going to have that after the qualifier rounds. Okay, so for now, just don't worry about grand crossfire, but grand crossfire happens after or before the final focus and after the summary speeches. Okay, just don't worry about that right now. After you qualify to the out round, we are going to explain that again to you, so just don't worry. Just now, right now, just try to prepare yourself for the qualifiers. Okay.
Okay, so all right. Thank you for that clarification, Afri ma'am. So the thing is that okay, in the qualifiers you don't have to worry about grand crossfire. So things are simpler here during the qualifiers. The grand crossfire happens only after you have done well in your qualifiers and thereby are eligible to participate in the quarters, in the semis and the finals. So grand crossfire is something that you can focus on later. Coming on to the do's and don'ts of crossfire. So do's you can read for yourself, don'ts you can read for yourself. I can also do it for you guys if that makes things clearer. Ask clear and brief questions. I've already told you 10-15 seconds, not more than that. If you exceed that time limit, it's going to harm your case as well, not just the other person's, because nobody gets enough time for engagement. Maintain civility, of course, at every point in time. Don't become hostile towards the other person. Don't become very defensive, or like don't become very offensive, in fact, in how you're treating the other side's case. And yeah, just try to be more civil and considerate even when you're debating with each other and are against each other. Analyze your strengths and weakness to choose what to ask or respond. This is about prioritization. Like I said, in the crossfire, you can't possibly discuss every nitty-gritty of the case that has been brought to the table so far. So what you're supposed to do and what you're expected to do, and the behind the scenes work becomes very important here, is to identify the most relevant thing that you want to foreground or attack on the other side. The most important thing that you think are there in your case, which you need to talk about more in your responses, and ask questions which you think are the weaknesses of the other side. Okay, and all of this is always in should be in progress. Okay, it's not like you give your speeches and then you're led back and you're not thinking of the crossfire and suddenly you plunge in. For the crossfire, the other partner, the team as a pair, should be preparing for the crossfire as they're delivering their speeches. Okay, so and keep making points of things that you think can be very useful in the crossfire, or things that I really need to engage, like say or not say in the crossfire. Okay, just have a separate page or like a note where you're actually putting things down there for the crossfire. Because you'd be at a loss, because this will be an impromptu thing if you don't have notes. Okay, represent teamwork in grand cross is exactly what I talked about just now. Okay, how you do that is, on like whichever platform you're working on, just have a common Google Doc or whatever and tell each other what to say in the crossfire. Not like, oh, this time the person A is going from my team for the crossfire, so I don't have to bother with it because I'm not actively participating. It's a team win if you win, and it's a team loss if you lose. So it's going to be teamwork by default. Learn when to speak and when to listen. Again, asking more questions than the other team is not going to by default win you the debate. So like it doesn't really matter how many questions you've been able to answer or how many questions you've been able to ask. It's more about the quality. And even if you've answered like one question but satisfactorily, and like it's a well-rounded answer, you're likely to do better than to when you're asked, as compared to a situation where you're just trying to ask questions for the heck of it. Okay, now on to the don'ts. Don't dominate crossfire and act arrogant or rude. It's basically reiterating the same point because we want to concretize this as much as we can. Beat around the bush to waste time. What does this look like? Asking irrelevant questions because you might want to fool adjudicators by making them think that, oh look, I spoke for most of it, so I'm more confident, give me marks, some such thing. This happens quite a lot, more often under performance pressure, but it's not the best thing and not the most advisable thing to do, because speak only when you have matter to speak. Okay, don't just waste your time otherwise. If you have questions, you ask questions. If you don't have questions, just say that you can give me questions, I don't have questions for now. Not asking questions is absolutely okay, doesn't increase your chances of losing the debate. Okay, hook off your opponents when they are unable to answer question. It's pretty much the same things, guys, and I don't think it needs any expansive explanation. Attack the person and not the case. I mean, just like, or add don't to every point made here. Okay, so like don't attack the person and not attack the case. Don't get too personal in your argumentation that, oh, you are hurt. I mean, just like don't talk about the person ever, the debater. It's always the case or the case that that person is pushing that you're trying to attack. Now that
Nitikshama,
we've covered 3 slides, yeah.
yes, so there are a couple of questions on crossfire. One question is about how, what is hooking off your opponents? So that basically means, guys, do you want me to answer or shall I?
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Afreen, you can please take care of the answers and then I can maintain my flow on the PPT.
Okay, so hooking off basically means, so let's say in the crossfire, you have been asked, like you asked a question to your opponents and opponents weren't able to answer that. So that doesn't mean that you're going to say, judge, because opponents weren't able to answer my question, please give them the loss. Do not try to blame the opponents just because they were not able to answer a question. Just move on to the next question. And another question was like, if the opponent, I think Raghav asked, if the opponent is not able to answer the question, should we just say that for the sake of time, I'm moving on to the next question? No, that's not how crossfire works. So if you think that the opponent is unable to answer a question, just ask them to, since they are not able to answer the question, ask them to ask you a question. So if they're saying that they don't have a question to ask, then you can go ahead with asking another question. So it's not like this, because you are not able to answer one of my question, can I ask another question? It does not work that way. It's back and forth. So if they are not able to answer a question, they get to ask you a question. Okay. Will we get extra time for or during our speech or ask questions? During your speech, no. only in the crossfire. I think Ayan, you need to like really focus on the PPT, because I think ma'am has already told you how crossfire actually works and when crossfire is. So crossfire is after the constructive speeches. You get time to ask question and answer questions. So it's for 2 minutes. That's when you ask questions and respond to the questions. Ma'am, so I do not understand one thing, is in what manner are we supposed to ask questions? I think Tanveer has answered, nice manner, do not be rude. But yes, so try to be polite, try not to be intimidating to the other partner, like to the opponents. Just try to ask questions because you want to ask question, and not try to ask questions because you want to show that you know more than the other person, okay? What if the opponent blames us for no reason? Just say that, just ignore that. Like, why would they blame you for no reason? And if that is the case, the judge would try to understand that, so don't need to worry about that. But the slide said that after the initial question posed by the proposition, either debater can ask questions. Does it have to be in an alternative manner necessarily? So the slide says that people are going to be, so first question is given to the pro, and con answers the question, and then con gets the other question. So one question to pro, answer by con, and then immediately after that con gets the question, and followed by that. Ma'am, what if the opponent, okay, then there is, ma'am, the same things are going to, yes, it's going to be the same for qualifiers. So how many questions are we supposed to ask? There's no limit on the questions. As I said earlier, it's always going to be based on your answers and how long your answers are. Since it's for 2 minutes, try to keep the answers short and try to have as many questions occupied. So can we like switch with our partners even if it's our turn? I'm not understanding that question.
Ma'am, I think what he means is, if suppose your partner has gone for, like, say, the constructive speech, can he go again for the second speech even though it's your turn?
No, you can't do that. Okay, I'm getting confused about final focus. Is it just a normal round, but just the last round before crossfire? No. So after, when your crossfire is done for the rebuttal speech, you're supposed to have final focus. Final focus is either going to be given by the first speaker or the second speaker. So you can decide as a team who wants to go and convince the judge as to who wins the debate. And that's when final focus comes into picture. Final focus tries to summarize and tries to tell as to who won the debate and on what values somebody won the debate. Can you explain the answers now over? Yes, Tanveer, you can do that. Is final focus just extra information on the topic? No, it's not the extra information. It's actually you trying to convince why you win the debate and on what values or on what criteria you win the debate. So you have already, like, you have a couple of arguments being run during the debate. So now you're going to convince the judge as to these are the arguments we are going to win upon, and these are the problems from the opponents which we need to see, and these are the problems, and that's the reason why opponents would not win. I think a lot about doubts on flow. So can you give the flow hard and clear? Okay. Nitiksha ma'am, can you show them the flow and explain them the flow once again? Karthik, the answer is yes. I think if you have done a WSDC, it's kind of similar to reply switches. Final focus. Sanvi, you don't need to learn the speech, you can read it. Yes, Nitiksha ma'am, go ahead.
Okay, is that it, Afreen ma'am? Is it like done, the questions?
No, there are a couple of more, but then just try to give the juniors wala qualifiers.
Oh yeah, cool. So guys, this is for one last time that we'll reiterate this, because after this you will have access to the PPT, and repeating answers to the questions we've already responded to just wastes everybody's time. So like for one last time, constructive speech from the proposition side happens first, then the constructive speech from the opposition side happens. All, like, both of them are going to be 2 minutes long, and then the crossfire happens between these two speakers. And like we told you, the person who's spoken last before the crossfire is the first to respond to a question, which means the person who was the opposition constructive speaker is going to be the first who will be asked a question by the proposition constructive speaker. Okay, After that, you have the rebuttal speeches. Same pattern follows, except that these are rebuttal speeches. The nature of this speech is different in terms of it being more combative. This I've explained yesterday, so like, and it was a recorded session, so you'll find it on YouTube. Rebuttals will it's so again the same thing happens. Now the second crossfire happens, and the people who have delivered the rebuttal speech are going to engage in this crossfire, and the same drill wherein the opposition rebuttal speaker is going to respond to the first question, after which the flow can take its own course. Nobody's going to say anything. After that, the final speeches are your final focus, which is your summarization and your biased adjudication for why you think you win the debate over the other side's arguments and claims. And after that, there's no crossfire. So this is the final thing that you do in order to try taking, like, in order to just like pan it all out and try taking the debate. Okay, so this is the structure for you guys. Everything is 2 minutes long, like every segment, every speech is 2 minutes long. So there's no complication there. That's pretty much it for the structure. Afreen ma'am, you can take it forward from here.
Okay, then. So yes, you're allowed to read your case. There is nothing like your marks are going to be cut because you're reading on the case. But then you're always supposed to make sure that there is some amount of manner that you're taking care of, like voice modulation, eye contact, the basic elements you're still supposed to take care. Are we only allowed to ask questions to the opponents in crossfire? Yes, you're only allowed to ask questions during the crossfires. Which team gets to ask the question first? If you could repeat it. The pro gets to ask the question first and responded by con. Ma'am, if we don't make eye contact, we lose points. Depends if you're not making eye contact whatsoever, you're just reading it out. But most probably, if you're still able to convince and you're still able to be clear, your marks won't be cut. I think you can continue now, ma'am.
Okay, just a second. I think there's some internet issues. My screen keeps. I hope it's visible now though, and that I'm audible.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, perfect. So now let's talk about argumentation and how that's supposed to be pursued. Once we've completed the entire thing on argumentation, we'll take questions again. The quantity of arguments is less important than the quality. Like, okay, again, another point that we've already made ample times in different formats whereby we were discussing them. Quantity of arguments or quantity of questions or quantity of like anything, right? The time for which you speak, none of that determines your victory or loss. What determines your victory or loss is simply the content and how important or relevant it is to the motion that is running in the house, right? Which means that as long as what you're saying makes sense, even if it is less, it would count as valid. It might, or I mean, it is enough for you to win the debate. So if even if you end up delivering, see, this time limit for you is 2 minutes. So I think you need at least 2 minutes in order to set a case and then rebut your case. So there's no question of like speaking for less than 2 minutes. But even if you end up doing that, like even if you end up finishing your speech at like 145, 150, don't be perturbed about it, thinking that, oh, now I'm by default losing out on this debate because I wasn't able to meet the time limit. The question is not to just meet the time limit, it's about making the most relevant points in how like in within the time limit. So you have to stick to the time limit, meaning you shouldn't exceed, but then to say less than that is okay, is also fine in so far as you're able to convey the point and home in on things that you actually wanted to furnish. Okay, so now on to the idea of argumentation. So this is a lot like what we do in the parliamentary debates and how we characterize a constructive, or how we discuss the components of a constructive as assertion followed by analysis followed by example. So like claim is basically an assertion wherein I'm claiming something, I'm making an assertion, I'm saying this and this is true or this or that is false, right? Now whatever I say does not have any weightage until and unless I prove the relevance of that particular thing by contextualizing it, by giving it a perspective from what the status quo looks like, or where I come from, or from which stakeholders viewpoint does this thing seem plausible. So I have to weave a story I mean, I'm not saying you have to fictionalize things. Weave a story meaning I have to create linkages of factual things that's going to make my claim seem more believable than the other person's, right? Because if everybody is researching, then it's obvious that everybody is going to be finding things on the internet which are relevant and to some extent true as well, right? Because not everybody, I'm hoping not everyone will go to Wikipedia and scrounge like the wrong things and then say them out loud, which means there's going to be a conflict of clash of facts. So there has to be some sort of an evidence which is based on facts, but there's also something that's called like absolute pure reasoning, which will come from your end. Even if you have statistics and even if you have articles, it's still your responsibility, things that you can't find on the internet, wherein you have to reason it out for yourself and tell me why this statistics is relevant to the claim that you're making, right? So like if I say that gender discrimination is likely to be higher in the developing countries, I will say that okay, this data or this survey proves it. I will also give a reasoning for why this survey is not an isolated instance, that in developing countries there are many other reasons for why I think gender disparity is likely to be higher, on the higher side, right? And I can give multiple examples and I can give, but there has to be reasoning as well. Panel, because of historical disadvantage, because literacy, because this that, because feminism came in later, we were still colonized while they were progressing, anything. But like there has to be reasoning as well. So like your claim, you can read it here, is a major argument made on either side of the resolution. Claim is a statement that I give you and I don't give any substantiation to it. That's just plain statement which awaits substantiation. Okay. And then evidence is of course proving the validity of your argument based on its truthfulness, right? So you're trying to establish its truthfulness, proving that the claim is valid. How do you do that? You refer to the statistics that you might have collected. Statistics involve referring to surveys, referring to reports, like I mean, it could be anything, right? The reports, indexes that keep coming up every year, or like on even on like I mean, there are different kinds of reports, right? Like you have census and then you have annual reports, and then there are reports by international organizations, there are national surveys. You can refer to any of those in as long as they're legitimate, as long as they're recognized by set and credible institutions, right? So that's basically a part of where your evidence comes from. But then articles are also good references. So like if you go to newspaper articles and you glean things out of that, that's equally acceptable. If you can't wade through the reports, because I understand these can be long reports, so you'll probably find the data from the reports also in the articles that you read. So yeah, refer to your newspaper articles, and that should be helpful. Now what so all of this, now claim, evidence, and then the thing about warrants connect the claim and its support. So justification and reasoning, which I just said, that comes in when we talk of warrant. So like once you've made the assertion, you're giving me statistics and surveys and reports, whatever you've had in your case file, and then you're also giving me reasoning and justification to just club the two things together and help me make sense of the two things as to how the evidence is related to the claim and how the evidence actually bolsters the claim. Okay, so that's it about your argumentation. Afreen ma'am, do we want to take questions on argumentation and get done with it, so that the number of questions that you have to respond to at a time remain less?
So there are very few on argumentation. Have already responded on chat, so I think we're good to go.
Okay.
Unless, I think Arya has a question. Arya, do you have a question?
Yes, ma'am. So, should we mention the resources used to gather the information in the speech?
Yes, you're supposed to do that, and ma'am would be dealing with that when she would be dealing with case file and evidences. So don't worry about that. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so now it's about this is about proof, right? Like, because we're talking a lot about research and about attesting what you are saying, this everything and all of what you say boils down to who is able to prove better the validity of their claim and who is able to establish the truthfulness of their claim. It's more about that than even the efficacy of your claim. Okay, so more than efficacy, the validity of it matters and the factual accuracy of it matters. So how do you prove that? So here's an example, and I'm going to use this only. So resolve that NATO countries should have acted together in Iraq. I hope all of you understand what this is trying to get to, right? So it's saying that NATO countries should have acted as in if Iraq, if there is a conflict, NATO countries are coming together and then they're acting against or towards something rather than going ahead and coming up in arms as individual countries. Okay, so like if I were to support this particular claim, how would I possibly do that? One potential way of doing it is to say that if I am collectively acting as part of NATO and all the countries are doing that as part of NATO, the not the responsibility, but the blame that is pinned on every country lessens, right? Because it's a collective organization, it's a block, it's a Western bloc that's going ahead and acting on something collectively, which means not any, like no one country can be blamed for doing, like being more proactively involved, or no one country can be blamed for being more dormant than the others. Okay, so that's the point, and that's an argument that could be made. And when you don't have to bear the brunt of responsibility for the invasion, then you have to tell me, so this is uh, like a means of analyzing things, but this is not enough analysis in and of itself. You have to understand. Okay, so like if you're telling me that look, each nation will have less responsibility, you also have to eventually end up explaining why less responsibility on every nation is a good thing, really. Okay, so like if you're saying that, oh, collectively it's better because countries will be less in the crosshairs of the person of the country that they are up in arms against, you also have to tell me why this particular country is better off without responsibility, because responsibility in general is thought of as a good thing. So you could give me more analysis. In fact, not could give me, you have to give me more impact evaluation of what are the benefits or the impact that come out of their country losing out on its responsibility. You could say that the countries will, like even the smaller countries which are taken responsible first, because the bigger countries always, it's always easier to devour the smaller fishes first. So like the smaller countries are always scared to take appropriate action or like have as much participation, because they're always the ones that become the scapegoats. That's one argument that you could run if you can find possible examples. That's why it's better for them to be given equal status to these countries for once, so that they can have equal participation without the fear of being called out. Or you could go ahead and say that every country would refuse to take action towards a particular thing if they were always concerned about their reputation as a nation, about how their ties would be with the rest of the world. Because every time you go ahead and launch into an invasion, there's a lot of ramifications that come your way as well, in terms of how the other countries are respond to you, how your trade relations are going to be after the invasion, so on and so forth. Once that is out of the picture, once I don't have to care about that, I can focus more on the thing that's there and for me to deal with, right? So like that's better as well. So there could be a lot of reasons, right? And there could be a lot of reasons for how you can confute this point as well, saying that look, individual responsibility has to be there because countries are sovereign, and then there's also the responsibility of them bearing some burden of what they're doing, and to be prepared for the ramifications. There are different ways of analyzing this. I'm not saying this is just one way, but then you have to give me impact of whatever you're proposing, is what I was trying to get at. The second thing is that the debater choose at least one type of evidence that will support the claim even when challenged. So look at this. Okay, now I have pursued one line of reasoning. I have to flesh it out and out, threadbare, which means it's not like I can keep switching from argument to analysis to analysis to analysis and leave everything in the lurch as and when it's attacked or targeted. Do you understand? It becomes problematic that way. Insofar as I am making a claim and the other side refuses that to accept that claim, and I let them refuse to accept it, and I show concession by not going ahead and re-establishing this case by saying no, they're refusing, but for all the wrong reasons. So you pursue one line of reasoning, because see, there can be always a lot of things which can lead to a particular problem or a particular or which could solve a problem. But if you choose to stick to one, then try to flesh that out entirely, because you'll be in the same frame of mind, so it'll be easier for you to pursue that same line of logic, even if reputation come your way. But just pursuing a lot of arguments and leaving all of them with loose ends is a very volatile thing to do. So this is about you choosing to assert your claim, not assert your claim, validate your claim with this argument, and trying not to and trying to prove its validity till the very end of the debate. Okay, in order for it to stand and be almost indestructible after you've defended it for so long. The warrant for the claim used in the NATO example should connect the judge to the thesis, perhaps by making anecdotal comments about how everyone is much better. So now here it's about how, okay, so you're already researching, but when we talk about anecdotal comments in terms of warrant, we're also talking about things like, but you can give us a short, a small references of things that could have happened also, right? Like something, okay, so let me give you an example. Like 9/11 happened and lives were lost, so on and so forth. There was an atmosphere that characterizes those days during which 9/11 was happening, and the kind of trauma that existed even afterwards as after effects, right? So even if I were to make like a hypothetical example out of it, say there could be a person who is suffering from PTSD after 9/11 happened because they've lost their family members. Now I don't know if there is an absolute truth, if there's any absolute truth in this, because I haven't referred to any article as such, and I don't know if there was actually PTSD. But I'm making a very reasonable and calculated estimate here, which is most likely true, because once you've lost a family member, it's likely that you're going to lapse into some sort of like a mental trauma, and it's going to be difficult to extricate yourself. So you can give us anecdotal comments, and they don't always have to be like factually provable, but then they have to be very relevant. They have to be relevant for the majority, and it should be easy for me to believe that this could have happened. You shouldn't have to make an entirely new case for me to explain why the likelihood of this happening is more. It should be very obvious that what the person is saying only makes sense, because even in other situations where such a traumatic thing is happening, it's likely to happen. Okay, so those kinds of things can happen. Any questions, because I think this became a bit too rushed, are more than welcome.
So there is one question on what is the difference between claim, evidence, and warrant, and we would answer that question by doing a little activity. So do you all know what midday meal is? How many of you all know that, and who can tell me? Okay, Krishna, go ahead, tell me what is midday meal.
Midday meal is like when you actually like you get the food from the school and you rather pay some money, or like it's an optional thing that you get the food in the school. Like you don't need to bring the tiffin from your home. You just get food from the school. School will provide you.
Yes. Tarun, do you want to answer that too? Do you have any other opinion?
So a question then. So pretty much what you guys were explaining is that based on something even so like the 9/11 thing that happened in America, so you can use that as an emotional leverage, so that the judges they go to your side. Emotional leverage. So that's what it is.
Okay, so the question was, what is midday meal? Just one, do you want to answer that?
For midday meal, I have no answer, ma'am.
Okay, cool. No problem. Aditya?
Yeah, midday meal was a program started by the government to help like in the government school so that children can have a nutritious meal in the at noon because of the poverty and all, to like bring that economical status and all.
Yes. So just to give you a nutshell of idea of what midday meal actually is, because we're going to practice a little bit of activity so that you understand what claim, evidence, and warrant is. So midday meal is basically in India given in largely in the government schools where kids are not able to, or like the parents are not able to fund the food of the children because of their economical status. They're probably poor and so on and so forth. So that's the reason why midday meal has been given, so that you incentivize kids to come to school and they're able to read and they're able to have a full stomach at the end of the day when they're going back home. All right. So the motion of the topic is, should midday meal be given in all the schools in India? You understand? Should midday meal be given to all the schools in India? And who would tell me the arguments for the motion that yes, midday meal should be given in all the schools in India? So just raise your hand if you know the answer to this, and I'll just pick and choose, and we'll just have a little activity before we understand what claim, warrant, and or evidence is. Okay.
Ma'am, public and private or just public?
Or all the schools means public and private both. Okay, so let's okay, Vibhav, you can go first. Why do you think so?
I think that all the schools should have a midday meal, be it public or private. It is in so many countries. If we can't give free education, then we can at least give this, because lunch in the schools are already, they are very expensive, 5 6 thousand. There are a lot of 1,000 rupees, 3 4 thousand rupees just for the recess meal that we get, and it would be better if we can give midday meals to in every school.
Yes, so the claim here is that lunch is expensive, so it gives accessibility of lunch to the children, right? So do you understand, the claim is lunch is expensive and it gives accessibility to people so that they can eat something when in the lunch. Okay, now what could be the reasoning as to why we need to give? So you need to now link it back to the motion, right? Which means that, okay, lunch is expensive, then what should we do to tackle that problem? So that's a problem that I think it has been identified, right? So claim, now reasoning. The reasoning is going to be that since it's in a particular school, be it like a public school or a private school, people from different demography actually come in different schools. So it's very difficult for people to go ahead and spend that much amount of money to go ahead and buy food, but also it's going to be much more convenient when like school itself is going to give you or provide you food to begin with. All right, so this is going to be the warrant or the justification or the reasoning that we have given for you to tell the claim. Now what can be the evidence? Now evidence here is going to be,
Ma'am, I wanted to make a claim.
Ma'am.
Afreen is something up. Maybe she got disconnected, guys. Let's give her some time, right? Is Shivansh around?
Yes, ma'am, I'm here.
Oh, okay. So Shivansh, you can take over the case files after I'm done with like tips and tricks, which is like my last slide. Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, that works.
Put your questions in chat, they won't get lost, and Afreen will get back to them the moment she's back. I'm sure she's having some internet issues. Meanwhile, Afreen, are you here? Because I can see that you're unmuted, but we can't hear you.
Yeah, hi Nitiksha. Sorry to interrupt. I have checked with her. She's actually having some network glitches. So she's going to join back. Yeah.
Okay, no worries. Until then, let's just finish this last slide because after that, Shivansh will take over and I really don't want to do it any further. Okay, so this is the last slide that I'll be covering today before you are told a little about the case files and how you're supposed to prepare them. So like while you're preparing, read this through. If you have any questions, ask them in the chat. So you're supposed to have a common receptacle for all your sources of research. Receptacle meaning just have like a common Google Doc or some such thing, and you share it with your partner, and both of you should organize data there so that both of you are privy to what each of you were doing during prep, and you're not lost in terms of you having researched differently, the other person having researched differently. The sources and everything else should be aligned, and both of you should be on the same page basically, but also that the data should be organized, because if you have to look up for evidence, it shouldn't take it like forever. There's only so much time that adjudicators will be able to give you in order for you to like furnish evidence. Okay, then you go ahead and deal with like research in terms of going to only credible sites to research. I think this is pretty obvious now that we research quite a lot, not just for debates, for other things as well. Don't just like go to Wikipedia and sites that are not reliable like Quora, or sites where anybody can come and opine. Just go to sites like which are run by the government, or like just any formal site like Britannia and everything, Britannica and every other site that you know as having been credible. Okay, so like just avoid these sites which everybody has access to. Cross check your evidence from other sources too. So like if you have one fact a piece of evidence, just try to get the same data from other sites as well, because sometimes you can't tell if this site is reliable. So in that case, especially if you're not into research and you haven't had any like you haven't done anything which required research from your end as an individual, just try to have like one if you have some piece of data, just try to like cross verify it with a lot of other sites in order to know that whatever you're saying is true. This stands more importantly for situations where you're trying to confute the other party's claim, saying that, oh, what they're saying is irrelevant because it's factually incorrect. So before you point that out, you have to be sure about your own data. So do that in order to be 100% sure of what you're saying. Advisable to use before summary and final focus speech. Yes, so I'm thinking this is about case files and how case files should be referred to every now and then so that you don't miss out on points when you are trying to make them and deliver. Because having a nice case file is one thing, and then being able to deliver everything that was on the case file with efficacy is another. So like always keep referring to it, and this should be like a referent that is always available to you, like the back of your hand. So coordinate with your teammate regarding division of prep time. Like I said, share this Google Doc. I mean, it's your own way how you want to do it, but at least have a shared document. About the don'ts, do not have different or uncoordinated research with your partner, something I've already said. Do not utilize prep time without informing the judge in the room. Yeah, so when you utilize your prep time, it always has to be with due permission from the judge. Okay, so if you're saying, panel, we want to use our time, like if you want to use your time in a particular after a particular segment of the debate, you can't just do it at your own whim. I mean, of course you can after a segment is over, but then you have to ask the adjudicators first so that they are privy to the fact that you are in case into the case prep, and you'll be taking some time before you start delivering your speech or some such thing. Okay, do not have the entirety of prep time being used by one speaker only. Ensure that there's maximum participation from the both of you, because only then will you come up with like diverse points. Yeah, I think with that I can stop, and Shivansh, you can take this forward if there are no questions, which is
Ma'am, should I start sharing my screen then for the case files that I have?
Yeah.
No, Shivansh, we have approximately 4 minutes left and I have the senior batch coming in. If we are done with the training session now, I just want to do quick 2 checks before I come back and introduce the seniors to come in and the juniors to leave. So sorry about that. Just give me a second. I just want to make sure, good evening, all of you. Have you all found your partners?
No, ma'am, I haven't.
Yes, these are the juniors.
I also haven't found a partner.
I'm still speaking. Whoever has any challenges on the partners, I just want them only to quickly put a quick note on this chat group on the Zoom now. Okay, not the guys who are yes, the guys who are problem cases. There were 17 hands raised yesterday, and I just want to make sure that we have 0 hands raised from tomorrow, because now we are ending the training. It's our last day tomorrow. We obviously know what the topic is, but we must now get the chemistry with the partner going. Okay, so I'm just quickly watching the chats. Was after this, if I hear that I can't find my partner, I will not take it seriously enough. I've given enough time, right? So all of you who have not found the partner, please let me know. And Nitiksha, I'm assuming that the doubts with respect to your training sessions have been taken. If they are, then I'll park Shivan's session later, but I will then welcome the senior group guys to come in.
Yeah, okay. In this case, we can have Shivansh take this session from the top tomorrow itself. I mean,
Yeah,
I think we can start.
so Shivansh is our totally favorite debater. He's literally grown with us. You can see him on our Insta page, and we were looking forward to Shivansh giving you a sneak peek on how he does his prep, because I think that's his secret weapon. So you shouldn't miss it tomorrow. All right, Shivansh, is that all right?
Yes, ma'am, that works with me.
Thank you so much. I always appreciate the way you are. That attitude really helps. So tomorrow we will have Shivansh give us the BTS on how he prepares and how he wins the US debates the way he does. Thank you for that. Okay, so I'm just waiting. I just want everybody to put in, because then after this, I'm not going to look at the WhatsApp chat and hear complaints over there. This is your last chance to put it on the Zoom chat, that if you haven't found your partner. Tanushri, I can see you. Anushka, I can see you. Anybody else? Only 2 people? This is not bad. Other hands up for something? I'm just wondering aloud.
Yes, ma'am, I have a doubt.
Go ahead.
I was wondering if I could get like a timing for the qualifiers, which is in the evening.
Individual requests don't do on a big group. It's just, it defeats the purpose, right? I can't even absorb 80 children speaking to me at the same time. Drop a email on Hello Ugly, right? You know the email ID.
Can it just be sent once again on?
If somebody doesn't know Hello Ugly email and mobile number, it will really break my heart next time. Okay, I need you to put this on your favorite list or whatever list. This is the Hello Ugly number, right? Do not break my heart next time. So we work very hard behind the scenes on it. Just make sure that you have it. With that, the juniors, you guys have done a great job listening to the training. It takes a lot. I can't tell you the quality of training you're going through is a lot at your age. So is it all right if I ask you to exit the group because the seniors have walked in?
Excuse me,
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you,
Thank
ma'am.
you,
Bye,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am,
for
for
your
time.
Thank you, ma'am. Bye, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Bye, ma'am.
Bye, ma'am.
Yes,
Yeah,
Simran, I was listening to you.
So, ma'am, I still can't find my partner. She
Bye,
hasn't
ma'am.
come
Have a
yet.
good day, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, I'm just saying, whoever's not found a partner, they're putting it on the chat window on the Zoom. You know, all of you know the chat window on Zoom, right? Just put it over there because I have my team looking at that. Don't verbalize it. Yug, Tarun, Simar, is there any other doubt that you have?
Excuse me, ma'am.
Recording.
Ma'am, can you please confirm the date of the challenge?
Of the qualifier matches, it is from next Monday onwards. So 8th, 9th, 10th. We want to finish because we want you to enjoy the festival of Rakhi after that.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, yeah, Aditya, go ahead.
Ma'am, so will you upload the recording? Because in the first half an hour to 45 minutes, I was having terrible network issues, so I wasn't able to hear.
Okay, just put that quick note on the Ugly WhatsApp, Aditya, and you know the number as well.
Yes, ma'am. So I should put this in the group or the personal?
Personal, always. Ishita, you raise your hands.
Yes, ma'am. I'm not added in the group.
Please put the mobile number on the group. You know, we are exceeding the number of registered users and I'm wondering how many numbers are getting added. So just put your number on this chat that kindly add me to the group. Tarun, talk to me. What is it? Hello, Tarun. Are you raising your hand or just saying a hello?
Ma'am, and can you tell me one more thing that I didn't understand the flow of the debate. So we will know whether we are for the motion or against it inside the debate.
No, so what we will do, Aditya, is we are going to release the schedule of the matches very shortly. And when you see the schedule of the matches, you will know your side also.
Okay, ma'am.
Right now, we're going to prepare for both sides because you will, any which way play 2 qualifiers. So it's likely that if you played for one side, then the second time you will do con, right? The other side.
Yes, and like the instructor was saying that do not utilize your prep time without notifying the judge. So prep time means the time we'll get to speak.
Prep time is the one that you are utilizing for preparation.
But won't that be like earlier only?
Yeah. Nitiksha, Afreen, are you there on the call?
Thank you, ma'am.
Ma'am, I've sent my number. Can you please add it?
Yeah. No, don't DM me. Put it on the group. There's a team watching this behind. Just give me 1 second. Aditya has left the group. Otherwise, that was a good question to answer. Don't direct message. Yeah, put it on the main message. Afreen, have you joined in? I think Aditya has left the room. Hi. Good evening, all of you.
Good evening, ma'am.
Okay.
Good evening, ma'am.
Just let's give it a minute for the rest of them to join in. I do want to see the grades in front of your names, please. And I'm hoping, or not hoping, actually, I'm encouraging the junior ones to leave so that they can do other things also. Afreen, Nitiksha, are you clear? Just 1 second. Okay, while the trainers just relog back in. Devika, are you there on the call? Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening. Yeah.
Perfect. Afreen, are you well connected now? You sorted through your issues? She's having some connection issues.
Yeah, I think she's not able to hear. She's pinging me that she's not able to hear us.
Yeah, just have Nitiksha join in. Just give her a quick buzz.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Okay, and okay, so for all of you seniors, you are all, I'm assuming you are all in control of knowing your partners and all of that. I just want to do a quick housekeeping before we go ahead. You're all connected with your partners, no issues on that?
Yes, ma'am. I'm having certain issues with my partners.
Apurva, then maybe you can DM the ugly number, you know that, right? You know the number that you can DM?
Ma'am, I have messaged your team. They are saying that they will be reverting back. So can I please know by what time will I get to finalize that she's my partner or not?
No, I'm not changing partners at all. There are no team changes that are entertained at all. I'm quite clear about it. Unless my
Ma'am, by what time will I get to contact her as we have our debates approaching, our matches?
Yeah, just give me 1 second. So one is that I am, Anushka, just 1 second, all of you just hold on. All of you know your team partners, you all have established connect, and I'm being very clear, there is no team changes unless there's an exceptional reason of illness or grief, which I hope is not the case. Now, I'm just looking at the group because I saw a few messages, and Devika, this is for you. I can see Shaurya Mathur, please contact me, Devanshi is asking. So has this happened or not? Have you guys connected? Anvita, have you been able to connect with Amrit Raj? And it's important enough for me to spend 2 minutes on it. That's why I'm asking you guys.
Ma'am, no, I haven't connected with Amrit Raj.
Okay. Gurveen, is there a question that you have?
Ma'am, I had an issue connecting with my partner. I've contacted her and she's responded as well, but I think she's too occupied. She doesn't really, is not really free, I think, for having a meeting or something.
That tends to happen with high schoolers. You all are living that life. But not being able to contact even once is different from the chemistry. So I'm just trying to see that. So Devika, this is for you. Devika from Ogli. Just ping down the numbers for Devanshi and Shaurya. Just bring down
Devanshi and Shaurya.
the ones you can see on the group, the ones who are just asking, Amrit Raj and Anvita. Otherwise, whoever's not asking, I'm not commenting on it right now. Have we got Nitiksha or Afreen sorted out now?
Yeah, Nitiksha ma'am is just joining in like a couple of minutes. Yeah.
Okay. So coming to the second thing that, yes, Anushka, go ahead.
Ma'am, I don't have a partner yet. I didn't see my name on the list which lists all the partner. I didn't see my name. And
Anushka,
I'm wondering if
Anushka, you will be answered by Ogli team. So, and we've addressed that to your parents as well. So this is not the forum for that. I think there was some late registration. So let's take that offline. Manas, what about you?
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yeah.
Is there a possibility that anyone can participate now?
No.
Okay.
It's actually what is happening is otherwise it imbalances the teams, right? We've already set the teams.
No, there are actually 2 people. So basically, if they register, you can just add them as a team.
Just take this offline with me then.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. Who else has
Good
got
evening,
any? Yeah, Afreen, thank you.
Finally, my internet is working. Really sorry.
It's very timely. I was just wondering how to fill time. Okay, so I leave it back to you guys. I see lesser attendees, but let's go ahead. This gets more interesting. Afreen, over to you. I'm just going to look at some of the exceptional situations that have come and they've called out, right? Leaving it back to you now.
Okay, I should be sharing my screen now.